I think I was distracted because I also had my shirt off when I was driving it. So I think I don't know. I might have picked up a can of Copenhagen and like a 6-pack of Coors Light. I don't know.
Hello, welcome to Brake Check Show Podcast, Episode 8. And today we have some fun topics for us again. We have another Ecobeast story. We have a Ram Rebel that looks just like a Toyota Sienna. It's amazing. A Ford Maverick update, were we right or were we wrong? And then most importantly, we have a special guest, Luke Dorr with the Open Dorr Podcast. Please stay tuned for that at the end. I think you'll find him quite funny, at least as much as we do. He is a riot to talk to and a good friend of ours, so stay tuned for that. But first on our list is the EcoBoost story, or Ecobeast. I'm sorry, I always get it wrong. Ecobeast.
Get it straight.
You've got one for us, and I'm kind of surprised by this topic, but why don't you go ahead and get into it?
Yeah, so in lieu of our normal What Have We Been Driving segment of the podcast, we're going to talk about what we've been driving. So you were out of state and you had a rental vehicle. It was a Ram Rebel. Was that what it was?
It was a Ram Rebel. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very interesting. It didn't look like it when you sent the pictures, but
no,
it okay.
Really, the ride and feel is just like a minivan.
Bizarre. And then I actually had your truck for the week, which is a 2011 Ecobeast.
Thank you.
It's a one-wheel drive, and it's the old man spec of truck, and I have a 12 Raptor, and so we live on the different spectrums of the same generation truck, effectively. So it was interesting to go from the extreme that is unnecessary and terrible at gas and hard to park to the extreme that's very functional and way more comfortable, rides better, gets 5 miles a gallon more, and is actually way faster. So I have made fun of the EcoBoost for, I don't know, since its conception.
And definitely the whole time I've owned it.
Well, that's part of the fun because you have one. But I've owned both the 5-liter Coyote version of this same generation F-150 and the 6.2 V8 in the Raptor. And I've avoided the EcoBoost. And much like one of our other fun topics, Craig, subjective versus objective ratings. So we've argued this, and we've settled this about 2 years ago because we went back and forth on this. Do you go naturally aspirated V8 or twin turbo V6 and sell your soul in the process? What should a truck have? All of these different things. And I still stand on the same mark that we landed on. Objectively, the EcoBoost is more efficient. It can tow more, and it is faster.
Okay, so what's the problem?
It sounds like a vacuum cleaner. It is missing 2 cylinders. And there's no testosterone feel or motion with it, right?
Look, the testosterone is when you pass all the other trucks.
Right, but no one heard you coming, so does it count? It's like if the tree fell in the woods, did it really fall if you didn't hear it? I mean, did anyone hear it?
Goodness.
Does it matter? So it goes back to the subjectively, the EcoBoost is the wrong choice, right? And this is where I've always been. After living with it for a week, because I've driven your truck a lot over the years, I haven't hit any dumpsters with it, but I have driven it a lot. And I have no dent stories, but maybe with some of your other cars, but not that one. So the moral of the story is I had an honest week with it, and I thought to myself, I took you to the airport in it because my Raptor has a stupid console in it, and I couldn't fit 6 occupants. So your old man spec XLT won the day, okay?
Yep.
So I take you and your family to the airport and drop you off, and I thought to myself, I'm going to drive this to work at least one day because I want to get a feel for this. In my day-to-day, is it any better?
And did you take it just one day?
Yeah, so I took you to the airport in it on a Friday, and then I kept driving it until I picked you up the following Saturday. So I think I put my truck in the garage and then just forgot I owned it, is what happened. And so it rides like a Buick.
Yep.
It tows like a tugboat.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get traction, it goes like nothing you're expecting.
That's a big if.
It's a big if. That is the actual Achilles heel, is its heel. Is the problem. And my wife likes it a lot more than the Raptor because it rides so much better. And I got 5 miles a gallon more across the board, not trying to be cute, just driving it like I would drive the Raptor, just going to work. And by the way, I can park it with only one correction instead of about 3 or 4 that it takes to get the Raptor into a parking spot.
Well, it is a little narrower.
A little narrower. So I want to give some credit to it. I still stand on if I had to buy one today, it's the one that has the features I want at the price I'm looking for. V8 or V6 turbo. I'm going to get the one that has everything else that's right, and I'm happy with whatever motor's there. So that's the good news.
I'm glad you ended it with that, because I was going to say, objectively, 2 years ago when we settled this, that's what we landed on, was that...
And that hasn't changed, no.
When you're looking at these trucks, if you're in the EcoBoost or 5.0 world and you're trying to figure out what to get, find the truck that you like, color scheme options, and if it happens to have a 5.0, get it. If it happens to have an EcoBoost, get it. It doesn't matter. Just pick one.
I'll even argue if it happens to have a 3.7, probably get it.
Yeah,
depending on your needs.
Look, all these modern trucks, just get the one
good.
that you like, that's got a good deal, and there's awesome motors on all these suckers. It's quite incredible. So
it is incredible, and yeah, I think that's a good way to wrap that. So you know, speaking of things we've been driving, tell me about the Ram Rebel that you reserved.
Well, yeah, speaking of awesome motors and trucks, so. I went out of state. We went on a spring break trip, also a family wedding that was involved, and so we had to rent a car for a week, or a vehicle for a week. So I'm not going to name the company because hopefully they'll sponsor us someday, Brian. But
budget. Sorry.
Yeah, but you can save a lot of money with a good budget. I'll just say that. Okay, so I did the prepaid thing, and I reserved a Ram Rebel. It said, of course, now it says or similar. And so maybe that's the key point. But it did say Ram Rebel. And I had my rate. In fact, I reserved that instead of a minivan because it was a little cheaper. And I was like, yeah, we can all fit in that, no problem. And it'll be comfortable. We're used to driving full-size trucks. And, oh, by the way, I'm kind of, as much as I like the Ecobeast, I may replace it soon. And a Ram's on the list. Let's check it out. Good time to test it. So we get to let's just say discount, budget rental counter. And I asked for, first off, Brian, I don't understand why rental counters take so long. I've got a reservation that I've already paid for, okay?
Right.
But for whatever reason, I stand in line for, it seemed like half an hour for 2 people in front of me. So
well, literally the only thing that's slowing you down is the human being in the process. That's what's slowing you down.
That's it. Oh, and the dot matrix printer from 1950, but that's okay.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So I get there, and I'm here for my Ram Rebel. Oh, sir, we can't do that because the card I reserved it with a credit card because I bought it online, prepaid it online. Didn't bring that credit card with me. Didn't think about it. I had my debit card with me. I probably should have listened to my wife on that and planned that better. But nonetheless.
Just transparently, that's travel mistake 101, but that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. Now, we had other credit cards. I just didn't bring that one. I just didn't think about it.
Okay. Got it.
So I hand him my debit card. That's what I happened to have on me. It was late. After midnight. I was tired. And he never asked for my reservation, so I handed him a credit card. Sir, we can't do it on a debit card. It has to be a credit card. I was like, oh, okay. Well, why is that? I already prepaid it. Well, because Ram Rebels are special. Oh, okay, no problem. Anyways.
What?
Long story short.
Special?
I don't want this thing to go on forever. We put it on a different credit card, gives me my reservation, and it says, all right, enjoy your Ford Ranger. And I stop and I go, what? My Ford Ranger? I have a family of 5. They are not going to fit in a Ford Ranger. And they said, no problem, we'll put you in a Toyota Sienna. So anyways, my Ram Rebel turned into a Toyota Sienna. And as frustrated as I was, Brian, I'm going to go back to, we've said this on a bunch of podcasts over and over now. As much as people don't want to drive them, don't want to be seen in them, get mad when they rent something else and end up in them, it was the right car for the trip. The minivan was so comfortable. That Ram Rebel that looked like a Toyota Sienna was so comfortable and was perfect for all of our stuff and all our gear and our road trip. So I was frustrated in the beginning, but in the end was quite happy. And there you go. So,
okay, get ready for a rant. Everyone, all 2 of you listen to this. Get ready for a rant. 2 things. 1, if you just need to move people, and people ask us all the time, what should I buy? Here are my requirements. And the requirement involves moving people. I always start at minivan because that is their only objective goal as a vehicle, as a category of vehicle, as a body style. Its only goal is not to tow, not to be fast, not to be efficient, None of those things exclusively. While I can do most of those, is to haul people.
That's it.
And let me tell you, if I'm going to South Florida, 9 to 1, I'm driving a minivan at some point, whether it's a family member's van or it's a rental or whatever. The last 3 or 4 trips, I've driven a minivan down there. And my
Whether
wife
you
and
had a
I-
reservation for something else or not.
Yeah, you can reserve a Dodge Viper. They're giving you a Sienna or a Caravan.
Yeah,
it's
you're
going to
gonna
happen.
So I've
It's
learned
gonna
that.
happen.
Yeah, that's what's
Yeah,
exactly
so
right. Yeah.
in fact, my wife and I now, if we ever ride or drive in a minivan here, we go, man, this reminds me of Miami. Like we have these deja vu moments of like, oh, this is so and so's van or our aunt's van or we rented one or whatever. It just seems to be the South Florida trend. So, you
Fair
blended in,
point.
Craig. It seemed like the right choice for you, and whether you knew it or not, you were destined to be in a Sienna.
Yeah, so it all worked out well. We were happy, and it's funny. You talk about anytime moving people, you need to get a minivan. I've told you the exact same thing because you're looking at stuff right now, and you're like, man, we do this for a living, and I'm like, you go, Craig, what should I get? I got kids, we got to drop them off at school, and it's for the wife, and moving the people, and they don't want them to hit cars, and they get out. I'm like, oh yeah, you need a
van.
minivan.
Yeah. So you and I joke off camera and off of podcasts, we're going to get in trouble for this probably. Hopefully our wives don't listen. But we reference to our wives understanding the game. I think you invented the segment because it's you and I shopping for cars. We never end up buying one or we buy something completely opposite that doesn't follow any logic or whatever. We show up in a Mazda 2 or a Ford Raptor, which makes no sense for anybody, and we end up doing it and we love it. And that's how it goes.
Yeah, good point.
We also acknowledge that our wives just need to have what they want. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
So,
husbands out there, I think y'all can let us know what. Maybe it works different for y'all, but I have a feeling that y'all understand. Y'all understand.
When you are shopping for your spouse's car, and this goes both ways,
Mhm.
husbands, wives,
Yep.
others.
Mhm.
If it's not for you, when you go to shop for that person, don't shop for you. Shop for them. That's what
Right.
you do.
Yep.
And so that's
exactly
what
right.
I'm doing. That's what you've done, and that's
Yep.
what's going to happen. So
That's exactly right. And that's what we would do for ourselves anyway, so that's fine. Nothing wrong with that.
Totally. How many times do we shop and end up in things that make no sense? It's fine.
Exactly. So,
Okay.
speaking of things that don't make any sense,
Great
our
segue.
next vehicle is a Ford Maverick update that we want to talk
the
about.
coupe from the 70s and 80s with the 2.34 cylinder?
No. The smaller than Ranger new Ford pickup. So
Okay, the
before,
unibody.
before we dig into the latest news on it, I just want to kind of remind our listeners, or as you call them, viewers for the podcast,
Sure.
remind our viewers what we talked about last night. We speculated. Was it going to be a Transit Connect or based on the new Bronco, the C2 platform?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of rear suspension was it going to have, independent or torsion beam? What kind of engine was it going to have? Well, Bryan, we have had some spy shots come out, and there's been some things confirmed, or a lot of things that we can tell from those spy shots. Would you please let us know what those are?
Yes, and I want to start with the most important part. And, well, the thing that I think you and I debated the most, was it going to be on the Transit Connect, which has a torsion beam rear suspension,
Mhm.
or is it going to be on the C2 platform, which is the Escape, and the new Bronco Sport, which we just had a review on? Great rig, great setup. In fact, when we left the Bronco Sport, we said, I hope the Maverick's based on that because it's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, at least now, these are spy photos. This is nothing coming from Ford Media. There's no official announcements. We could be getting juked by Ford. They could just have a test mule that happens to have
Good
this.
point.
But
Good point.
it does have, and from the photos, it looks exactly like the twin disc rear differential from the Focus RS or the Bronco Sport,
Mm-hmm.
and the steel independent rear suspension control arms are visible in the shot. So and also a lot of the spy websites and intels and forums are saying that it's based on the Bronco Sport, and it sure looked like it. And I think that's a great thing because it's, we recently drove it. It held up pretty well. So what's your thought? There are also some more things about trim levels, which I don't want to get into too deep because I'm assuming there's going to be maybe a Badlands or something similar to that, right? Big Ben trims, that kind of stuff.
Right, yeah, we won't get too deep in that, but that is something else we talked about last time we were talking about the Maverick and speculating, what do we hope to see out of it? We hope to see maybe an off-road type trim, not a, and it looks like we're going to get that. So there's two different trim levels we can see in the spy photos. You can tell they're different by the wheels and the tires, and we can't really tell in the rear end yet if that's going to be different or not, but it looks like there's an off-road spec. It looks like it has the same tire as the Bronco Sport Badlands.
Yep.
The wheel looks, is a little bit smaller, meatier tire, and there's in the Bronco Sport world, it's called, I think, the Outer Banks. It looks like there's a trim level like that.
And the test mules were wearing the same wheels that the Outer Banks and Badlands have on the Bronco Sport.
Exactly.
And it could just be for their testing. That's not to say that's the name of the trim packages, but it leads us to think that that's the direction they're testing.
Which is pretty interesting. So I'll ask you now that we know these new things about it and we can confirm some of them, are you still just as excited about the Ford Maverick? Where does this fit in their lineup? Does it make sense in the lineup? Why this truck, if the Ranger is still out there? Please help me understand this.
Okay. Wow. Here's the deal. I've never once looked at a Ford Ranger and thought, that thing's too damn big. I wish they made a smaller one of those. It's never crossed my mind. But when I see the spy shots, and we just drove that Bronco Sport that had the 2-liter turbo, I'm assuming this would have the same engine as an option. I thought to myself, that might be a really compelling option. Because it doesn't have any truckiness to it. You drive it, and it's just a crossover feel with a really good meaty tire on it. Like, it kind of feels like a blend of an Xterra and an Escape. And it kind of, because it has so much tire on it, it kind of rides and handles like an Xterra. And so little wheel on it. I'm excited for it. I look at the photos and the test shots, and I go, that looks awesome. I can't wait till that's in our driveway to test out. And it's just a matter of time. Now, that being said, I've seen some teasing on the next generation Ranger, and seeing what Ford's done recently with interior designs overall, the Ranger's long in the tooth currently. If it gets a good update, I'm going to be compelled with that too. So it's going to come down to price and who is it for, but I think that this is going to be narrower than a Ridgeline. And so I feel like you're going to have some people that really don't want a big truck but need to do garden stuff or maybe a dirt bike, that kind of thing. This is going to be an interesting choice. And I'm curious to see where that goes.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's going to be interesting because, why get this truck? And I think you nailed it with the ride. This is going to ride better than any Ranger or F-150.
Ever.
Not that those ride bad. Not that those ride
but
bad.
Trucks. They're trucks. They have to tow heavy stuff.
Right. But this
and
is
the trade-off is ride quality.
This is going to ride better. And for most people that what they need a truck for, this is going to do it. Now,
and it's going to park really well, too, because it is pretty narrow.
But now, still go back to the same old thing. The question that I think has to be begged is, just because most people don't need that much truck, they still always get more truck. And so it's going to be interesting to see how Ford tries to convince people that they don't need that much truck. So we'll see.
Well, and that's interesting, too, because it's counterintuitive to the F-150 being the number one vehicle on the freaking planet in terms of volume.
Yeah.
And the cash cow for Ford, they cannot afford to cut into F-150 sales. But the 150 is giant, and you brought it up in the last 150 review. It's gotten bigger. It's a bigger vehicle now, and so for some people, that's not going to work. So now you have two options. I don't know that the Ranger market was that big anyways, so I'm a little bit nervous that this is going to come out and cut into either the 150 or Ranger market. That the Ranger, it's not a huge seller as it is. It's not a low seller, but there's not a, at least in our region of the country, you don't see Rangers every 2 seconds. Right. So I don't know they can afford to lose much in sales and maintain its status.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So,
yep.
All right, well, let's move on to the next topic because we got the special guest, Luke Dorr,
absolutely,
with the Open Dorr podcast. We are excited about this one. We've had this planned for a while, and it's going to be good.
Little background on Luke. He is a fellow podcaster. He lives in our region. He's a family friend, and happens to have just started his stand-up comedian career, which is really, really exciting. The guy is really funny. And he's got some great stories going along with that. We're really excited for where he's going to go with his stand-up career. And stay tuned for Luke Dorr.
Brake Check listeners, we have a special guest for you today. Our first guest on Brake Check Show podcast, the one, the only, Luke Dorr with the Open Dorr podcast. Luke, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for letting me invite myself onto your podcast because I've definitely wanted to learn more about cars and also just learn just how to be a better brother. And so who could I look to besides Bryan and Craig Ropp? So I'm excited. Thanks for letting me on.
Well, you could look to a lot of other people, but we're glad you settled for us. So that's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we've got some questions for you. Brian's got 2 questions at the end, but I want to start us off with the first question, and that is, just tell us about the Open Door podcast. You had this idea, I think, about a year ago, if I remember right, and
Yeah.
you were that's been going well. You've had a lot of interesting guests on the show, and you've covered a broad range of topics. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, why you did it, and then I'd also like to hear about, you've got a little bit of a stand-up comic career you're starting, so one could say a budding career. So, anyways.
Well, the Open Door podcast, it's something that I thought, you know what the world needs is another podcast that no one will listen to. So I thought to myself, let me get some people that I know who have interesting stories or just interesting thoughts. And Craig actually was my first guest of season 1.
Well, hey,
so
I want to stop you out there real quick. Out of all the guests you could have chosen from, what were you thinking?
Well, also, he was the first available person I texted.
Okay.
So
just wanted to clear that up.
I was just like, hey, who has probably nothing going on and not started his show yet? So I was like, oh yeah, Craig's available. So
Well, I'm glad you thought of me first, so appreciate that.
yeah. Well, and I just felt like it was just a good start. So I decided to do a podcast because people have stories. People have, interesting thoughts. They just come through all areas of life and things about, people nowadays. They just want to be able to relate. They just want to be able to know that they're going through the same stuff maybe someone else is. And so, and just maybe, with you and I, Craig, the topic that we talked about was just at the beginning of COVID and quarantine and just how that progressed. And, I had some interesting topics, about, the importance of a mentor, and also I had my wife on and talked about marriage, which was one of our most successful podcasts. Not really, but and I had, someone who had dealt with drug addiction and everything. And so it was all these different things that I was like, people need to hear this. People need to be encouraged. And, Craig hates this, Brian. I don't know about you, but my Enneagram number is a 9. I hate the Enneagram too, but this is how the best way I can do it is like the peacemaker. So I'm just like, I want people to be happy. I just want people to get along, just enjoy life. So that's just kind of like, hey, I want people to hear the story and just feel better about themselves. So that's kind of what I did with the Open Door podcast. And so this is actually kind of our dual episode, because season 2 is kicking off with y'all.
Yes.
So so I'm excited about that, and so what briefly about my stand-up comedy is probably what my career will be. It's just brief because I went.
Hang on a minute. So before you get into your stand-up career, you mentioned your most successful podcast, your marriage one with Katie,
right?
Right. I understand, based on some reporting on your stand-up career so far, that it may not be good for your marriage when she's in the audience.
So I will not go into it, because if I did, it's not family friendly, and we're all about the family here.
Oh yes.
But I made some choice words, and I thought, is this worth risking my marriage for a group of 60 people to laugh? And I said yes. So,
like any good comedian would.
Right. And so actually, a funny thing, you said that Dave Chappelle, he said that he has one rule in comedy, and he said everyone is, on the table. Like, everyone, you can make fun of anybody, and you don't worry about hurting people's feelings.
Man, I'm afraid to go to one of your shows.
Yeah, well, the thing is that I don't know if I could make fun of you, because I don't know. It's just, I feel like Bryan gets to do that enough that I actually need to be like the positive person in your life.
Oh no, I need backup. I need backup on this, Luke.
Thank you.
So
we'll talk later. I'll fix you on that. Don't worry.
It's okay. Yeah. And then, with my stand-up comedy career, so one of the biggest things in my life is I wanted to take risk. I wanted to do something that was out of my comfort zone, and people tell me all the time, like, oh, you're naturally funny. And I was like, okay, well, that's good and all. And I guess that's the best way. But like, I want to be able to write jokes. I want to be able to do something and just do something really different. And so I decided to take a risk. I actually did my first stand-up routine at a widow's luncheon where I knocked them dead. So
Luke,
I did that.
That's not how it's supposed to work, man.
Oh, sorry. Well, so I did that, and then after that, I went to a Christmas party, a company Christmas party, and then I went on a 30-minute tangent about me crapping my pants multiple times, and which are all true stories. But the thing is that with comedy, you just embellish it a little bit, and they're like, "Is he telling the truth or is he not?" And it's like, I don't know. You just got to listen. You got to figure it out. So
one of the things I think is great that you do is you also do a great Trump impersonation. And the reason I'm tying this together is you mentioned
it's fantastic.
Yes. You mentioned embellishing stories, and I can't help but think, is comedy like a good conspiracy theory? There's a little bit of truth, but it's embellished a little bit.
Or a lot of it.
Well, Gregory, you would be right to say so. I mean, I know things. I know a lot of things. I also know that Sleepy Joe, he just threw all of it. He just threw it all over the garbage. Something with how to, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know.
But, so the thing is that when it comes to my Trump impression, the thing is that I think of the most ridiculous thing I would say ever, and then I just do it in my Trump voice. So, and you know what? That's what people like enjoy, because, most of the things, not getting, too political or anything, but it's still like, yeah, that's par for the course. That sounds like something he'd say. So, but going back to comedy, I did my first show last night that was completely out of the ordinary, and I went to Dallas, and I went into an area that I thought would be a lot nicer than it was, and it wasn't, and there were people there that I did not expect, and it was it was one of the most terrifying moments in my life where. I seriously, on the way home, I'm sitting in the back of my brother's truck, and I'm sitting. And by the way, as far as truck stuff goes, he drives a 2020 GMC Sierra Denali.
Oh, thank you. Okay, very good.
So he I didn't talk for 45 minutes, and he finally goes, "Luke, penny for your thoughts," and I go. Why do bad things happen to good people? like, I'm like, God, what did I do to deserve this? I have been faithful. I'm a good friend. I'm an okay husband, maybe a better father. And all these other things. And then it just comes to the point where last night I had to text my therapist and said, "Do you have any availability on lunch tomorrow?" So it was so embarrassing.
Oh,
and I'm just going to tell you that this group of people I was with last night, you do not tell them jokes about Harry Potter, because they do not know what the heck you're talking about. So it was terrible. So.
But it's going to be such great material for the next one, is it not?
Oh, 100%.
It has to be.
I mean, Bryan, I don't know if I think the few times I've been able to hang out with you is like, it's like actually comfortable for me, like hanging out with my own brother, because you can kind of just pick up where you kind of just leave off. Like, we've known each other for years. That's what it feels like. And that's kind of like what I try to feel with comedy, is with the crowd. I try to feel like, hey, we're just picking up where we're leaving off. And then pretty much I was like, last night I was like, no, we've never met before, and they're like, who the heck are you? So it was an experience, but I'm actually doing another show in my hometown of Mineral Wells, April 3rd. So and that's going to be in the day before Easter. So not only was Jesus risen, but I didn't have a joke after that. I couldn't say anything. I don't know, but it was just like, but that was it. So Jesus was risen the day after. So, but anyway, yeah, I'm doing that, and that's going to be fun for me because I have a lot of people actually. I don't know if it's like my mom Venmo'd them $100 each to say, please give my son a positive comment on his Facebook today and say that you're coming to the show, even though you probably won't, but at least do that so he can feel better about himself. And you know what? It worked.
Well, good. So. And that is all great stuff. We are looking forward to April 3rd, maybe the best Easter ever. So definitely a big change. I mean, other than the first Easter. I mean, let's get that out of the way. But it's going to be great to definitely better than last year's Easter. I remember when we did our podcast last year, you and I, Luke, that it was Easter week.
It was the weekend of Easter. Yes.
Yeah, and we were talking about how weird it was, and so this is going to be much better. And so there's that. But Bryan, we're on a car show. I think
we are. Yeah.
So, Bryan, you've got some questions for us. Why don't you ask him some car questions, and let's see what old Luke's got for us on that.
Yeah, and I may have another few more questions I might sprinkle in there too that may not be car related. So before we get to the cars, Luke, will there ever be a closed door podcast?
Yeah, I think that is going to involve my dad, because me and my dad have a lot of issues. So just kind of like, I want to close that gap in between us. So maybe that would be something. I don't know. But he also said, he said he didn't have time for it. And I said, per usual. So it was, one of my things is that, and all joking aside, that, my dad, I talked to him about, doing the podcast and I said, have you listened to my podcast yet? And he goes, what channel is it on?
Well, fair enough.
and I was like, well, this is great. You're not even 60 years old yet, and you don't even know what the heck I'm talking about.
What channel?
So, yeah. What channel is it on? And also, my dad's not from New York. That's just what I imagine an old guy sounded like. So.
Okay, fair enough. I do find it interesting about, I listen to your podcast. I find a very therapeutic aspect to it. And it feels like a very much so a human interest podcast. You talked about how things need to be discussed, and that's exactly what happens. Mm-hmm. And so it's so multi-topic and multi-ranged. I could actually see you doing a more focused show that's closed door podcast that maybe is a more serious side. You can still bring Trump in for your cameos if you'd like, but it's interesting. It's fun to listen to. So speaking of therapy and dads,
sure.
We have a segment on our podcast where we ask people and ourselves, what is a vehicle that you wish your dad or mom or aunt or uncle, someone from your childhood never sold? And what that means is there a vehicle that you grew up spending time with that you may be connected with that you might miss or you were just fond of or wish you can go back and have that car now? Do you have any stories like that from your childhood? I don't know if you came up in a car family or not, but some people had this in different ways.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So, Craig, kind of debriefed me on that and let me know. And I thought about it. And actually, I'll talk about two cars real quick. I want to talk about, it was 1998, and my mom had this turquoise colored minivan. And it was, I don't even know if it was Ford, Chevy, whoever, I really don't know. And I'm not a car person, obviously. I just know how
you knew it's a minivan. That's good.
Yeah, that's step one.
Right. I knew it was a minivan.
Get the body style right.
So, right. And so the thing is that was my first time also experiencing what they call the captain's seat.
Yes.
And so I just remember that growing up, because what my parents used to have, my mom, she used to have this old Ford Explorer that was just a total just piece of crap. And I hated it because I accidentally fell out of it one day and busted my nose. And so this was the car that she got after. And I just remember the first time as a child, having my actual really own seat, because I have 2 older brothers. So in the Explorer, we were always just, just smushed together.
Yeah.
And so with the captain's seat, you had your own. It was even better than the front seat. You didn't want the front seat.
Right.
You could so you had the captain's seat, and then I was able to, lay back and take naps, because we always went to West Texas for vacation, which was pretty much like going to see your grandmother. That was vacation for us. So
Right.
I always remembered that, and I remember when she traded it in for another Explorer, and I thought, why do you hate us? so that happened, and then and also the one I miss the most is, so my dad, he had a Chevy Silverado. This was mid 2000s, and it was a beautiful red, it'd be a typical one you'd probably see, but to me it was like this beautiful red color, and had a black brush guard on it. And remember, I'm from Mineral Wells, so it's like the more country it looked, the better.
The brush guard in small town Texas is much, it's a status symbol as much as a functional tool.
Right.
Right.
And so, I remember that, so fun fact, my parents had a no pass, no drive rule in school. So it got to my senior year, and I still didn't have my license. And my mom said, I'm throwing that rule out the window because I'm tired of driving you around. so
You cracked the system.
Remember. Yes. So joke's on you, Mom. So I did that. But my dad, the first time I actually had my license, he goes, do you want to take the truck for a spin? And I'm like, well, heck yeah, I do. Which the stupid part was, he says you can take it to Walmart. Well, where I grew up, Walmart was a quarter of a mile from my house. So I was like, no, Dad, I want to feel the open road and all this other, freedom and all this other stuff. And he was just like, no, you're good. So I was like, so again, another thing. But I just remember that because that was the first actually vehicle I got to drive. And when in high school, even though it's my senior year, I got to take my girlfriend on dates. My dad always said, hey, take the truck, do this, make sure you fill up with gas and all this other different stuff. And that was just kind of like, my dad felt like he was just going to pass it on to me. Like this was going to be like a great thing, because my brothers used to just have really like garbage cars, and I'm thinking I'm about to have this amazing truck, and then surprise graduation, my mom gave me her Explorer that I hated.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, great, and so it was called. And so that ended up being my first car up until about 6 years ago. And so I've only had 2 cars that I've technically owned in my life, and so it's pretty awesome.
And another topic for another day. Maybe next time we have you on, I want to hear about a little tease for the next time you're on about your Prius minivan.
Ooh, whoa. That might be a whole episode.
Okay.
Yeah, just hang on to that. So, but yeah. Anyways, okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That was great. That was fantastic, and I'm glad that after 4 years of knowing you, that's still what it's called. So it's great.
All right. Well, we've got one more segment I want your input on, and this is something that Craig affectionately calls dent stories. And
yes,
for those that are listening, what we mean by that is a moment of impact that you've had with your vehicle or with someone you know. Maybe you were in the car with them, or you've been a part of it. Maybe you've caused a dent. Maybe you've been victim to the dent. But what's a memory you've had in a vehicle regarding a dent?
Yeah, so this is going back to also one of my dad's trucks. This is actually when I moved to Granbury. So my wife is a children's pastor here in Granbury, and she, she was like, "Are you going to go? When are you going to go help these people move or get all our stuff ready?" So my dad, he stops by the house we're living in, and he says, "Just take the truck." Right. And again, but at this point, my dad, he's not driving that Chevy Silverado. He's driving, this is before Dodge and Ram split. So he had this Dodge Ram, and this is like, I think 3,500, like dually, like just stupid big truck that like I had like, and also like the turn radius was terrible. So
They still are, don't worry.
So yeah. Oh, thank goodness. So I remember I was going to one of the storage units here in Granbury, and I went to turn to the keypad. And so I turn and I like make the turn, and I'm like, oh great. So what I did.
Hang on a second. Hang on. So sometimes this turns into confessional hour. Does your dad know about this?
Wait.
Yeah. I'm going to get to that.
He doesn't know what channel we're on.
Okay. Sorry.
It's okay, Craig. He doesn't know what channel we're on.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, how can I find you on the YouTube? I don't even know what's at. So I'd get the keypad, and then apparently I was still too close, and I didn't remember to like swing out when I was going in, and so the back of the driver's side of his truck is all yellow from the gate, and a huge dent in where the rear tire is at.
Oh man!
But here's the thing, I kid you not, the truck is so big I didn't even feel it.
Oh man!
So I get done unloading all the stuff, loading it up, and loading it back and unloading at the well, I come back to the house and I'm about to unload it, and my dad goes, "What the HE double hockey sticks did you do to my truck?"
Wait.
And,
so at this point, you go to a storage shed. This big scratch and dent on it. You get it loaded up. You go back to wherever you're unloading it. You don't know that you've got this dent on it.
100% God's honest truth. Don't know it's there.
Oh my God!
So
you have ignorance on your side or against you. I'm not sure yet.
Well, I think it was definitely against me because my dad said a lot of words that rhymed with duck after it. So he was so mad that he was like, to this day, this happened 4 years ago. To this day, my dad does not let me drive his truck. I am 30. He does not let me drive his truck. He'll let me put things inside of his truck. He'll let me put the hunting gear and his golf clubs, but he's like, "Hey Dad, can I take you around the block?" And he's like, "Do you remember what happened last time?"
4 years ago?
Yeah, 4 years ago. And I'm like, "Well, Dad, I'm glad that we've had this conversation." So
It's been healthy.
It's been very healthy.
Well,
That is great. Does he still have the same truck?
He actually doesn't. So the thing is that
And he still won't let you drive that.
He will not. So my dad used to work for a company where part of his salary was that they had a stipend for his truck, and so they pretty much like paid most of it for him. But that company no longer is existing, and so he went and got this 2021 Ford F-150, and I've seen the reviews that you've had on the Ford F-150. Very popular, most popular, as far as that. And but it's like black, so I'm thinking like this would be like the sweetest truck to drive, because I think of myself if Batman drove this truck, it would be this one. And so he still won't let me touch it. So it's pretty sad. It's humorous, but most of all, it's just sad. So
well, I want to add a couple things to this. If it makes you feel better, Craig's wife won't let me drive her car still, so I'm in that club too.
Wow.
Don't worry about it. And secondly, we just need to get you in a new 150 just to drive one. I think we can make that happen. You don't have to tell your dad about it, or you could and say, "Look, Dad, I did it. I didn't hit anything," and we should do that as a side episode just for fun.
That would be fun.
Well, the thing is I'd have to send him a link to it, because he'll just he'll just be.
What channel is it on?
The thing is that my dad just recently found out about emojis.
Oh,
So
okay.
if like my dad is sending like a crying, laughing face, I'm thinking, who at your work sent that text message for you? Because like, I mean, he's like, no, it's hilarious. It's like, don't you get it? And I'm like, yeah, I got it back in 2012. So
let me ask you:
So-
were you emoji texting when you wrecked his truck? Is that what happened?
Ooh.
no, so what had happened was so being like, again, small town boy, like I thought to myself, like, man, I have made it. I am driving in my dad's truck. I am driving this awesome BA truck here, and I'm thinking to myself, yes, this is going to be great. And then a yellow streak and a dent later, it's very humbling. Like, it's just, well, it's just, you have country music, like but the thing is, it's not this new stuff that people are listening to. It's like the George Strait and stuff like that, Alan Jackson and
So no Luke
everything.
Bryan or
And then
anything like
also, no, but also, like, I think I was distracted because I also had my shirt off when I was driving it. So And I think I don't know. I might have picked up a can of Copenhagen and like a 6-pack of Coors Light. I don't know. Either way, it was just not. It just was me going back into my small town country feel, and it just bit me.
It's funny. It's almost like your story starts off as a modern country song with the big truck, no shirt, and Copenhagen and a 6-pack, and then it turns into an old country song with the heartbreak at the end.
Right. And,
Full circle.
And the thing is like, it's both versions of Billy Ray Cyrus. So it's like, Icky Bricky Heart. And then there's also, but like, so Old Town Road is playing first. And
right.
Yes.
Yeah. And then after that, it is
Achy Breaky
Breaky
Heart.
Heart. So
I'm glad you've bookended
goodness.
small town Texas for us. It's been really informative. Luke, what a hoot, man.
Yes.
thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And again, reminder to everybody: April 3rd, Mineral Wells. What's the name of the place it's going to be at? Can you share that, or is that?
Yeah, totally. It's called Coffee and Cocktails at 76067. So that's the zip code of Mineral Wells, is 76067. A little history.
Okay.
It's in downtown Mineral Wells. It's right catty corner from the Baker Hotel, which will actually be opening for real.
Very good.
And very soon. And so they asked if I wanted to do that, and I said, "Why do you want me to?" And they said, well, we don't have anyone else, and we need to fill a spot. And
Okay.
so I was like,
You'll take
I
it.
said, okay. And I said, yeah, so I'm Craig Ropp. So that's right.
Great. Well,
So
and
that's
on
what
that
happened.
on that great note, we'll end it here. Thanks again for joining us, and thanks everybody for listening. Be sure to check us out on YouTube, all those channels or stations that Luke's dad checks out. We're on all of them. So we'll catch everybody next time. Thanks, guys.